Last week, some Ghanaians protested some Nigerians' continued oppression and takeover of commerce and community in their country. Let's backtrack to contextualize the genesis of the must go refrain from both countries. In 1969, Ghanaian Prime Minister Kofi Busia created an immigration policy titled the Alien Compliance Order. With that, all undocumented immigrants had just 14 days to either get a residence permit or leave the country. Ghana cited crime rates and wanting to recapture Ghanaian economic space from foreigners. 70% of the migrants were Nigerians. In 1983, during the Shagari administration, the Nigerian government issued an executive order in what many see as a retaliation, asking foreigners to leave Nigeria. The targets were Ghanaians for their sheer number and overwhelming functional value at that time. Their exit birthed the iconic Ghana Must Go bags. 4 decades later, Ghanaian citizens, not the government, are protesting, asking Nigerians to leave their country. Why? They're citing crime rates, prostitution, ritualism, kidnapping, violent attacks, economic reasons, and territorial incursion by the Igbo. I've seen videos of Ghanaians pulling down structures of Nigerians in anger. Sahara Reporter reports that the Ezendigbo Ghana matter involving Chukwudi Hinetu triggered protest and intense public debate around issues of sovereignty, cultural identity, and the limits of foreign community leadership in the country. I pick up from where I left off last week on indigenization. The Tribune reports a protester saying you cannot be in another man's country and be doing anyhow. A migrant should not claim indigenship rights. That's what I think. You have an enabling environment to thrive already, so enjoy it in peace instead of aspiring to have the same ancestral rights as the owners of the land. So why set up a parallel cultural government in someone else's country? It's an affront. I thought royalty was hereditary. How is it that anyone can wake up to become an Eze outside Southeast Nigeria once he has money? Next thing is creating a throne and establishing court. And this is what I like. I like that the Southeast traditional rulers have substituted that title of Ezendigbo with Oyendu Ndigbo. Ghana not be Nigeria.
I would like to start by asking, what does Onyedu Ndigbo mean?
I think it means leader. So it doesn't mean that you're a traditional ruler. It means that you're leading the community of Igbo people in a place. So that's exception that people take to, no, you can't be a king in our land, will now not be there.
That makes sense, and it's very, very valid. I would like to say in 1969, Ghana did Ghana Renew. In 1983, Nigeria did its first Nigeria Renew. But then again, I feel like it's a stretch thinking Nigeria was retaliating 14 years after Ghanaians' request for foreigners to leave if they are unable to get their people sorted in 14 days. Economic and social migration has been a thing for years all over the world. People are going to move for different reasons.
That's right.
But it can only work when there is respect for the host community's values and culture. You cannot go to somebody's ancestral land and start trying to impose things that are alien to them. You cannot go to somebody's ancestral land and start trying to form king. Everybody should go and do that in their, respective villages, irrespective of where it is. It's like going to the UK and say you want to be the king of Nigerians in the UK.
We need to focus on certain things. One, we have an ECOWAS. And why did we form ECOWAS? To allow ease of trade and movement within West Africa. We are talking about strengthening the African Union. So we cannot be saying one thing on one hand at policy level, then not educating people enough. If Nigerians are legally in Ghana paying taxes, there is no reason why anybody should come and say
Nigeria must go.
They must go and try to now generalize with those breaking the laws. They should be able to enforce their laws, because any time history has shown us that generalizing usually doesn't end well. And I think there's a smart move that is being played. Why is this becoming an Igbo problem? I don't think the issue of the Eze Igbo is what led to that whole outcry. It's just probably one of those things you throw in to say people are not respecting your community. Because if they call themselves that, there are laws even in Nigeria. If you decide to call yourself anything, if you are not recognized by government, you are not. So it's just amongst your people.
Yeah, but that's Nigeria.
But let us not be hoodwinked, okay, into now justify their criminality based on some petty. It's criminal to attack Nigerians. As long as they are there legally and paying taxes and not breaking any law. All right, so let's be very clear.
But they're telling you that they're breaking their laws.
No. That is the thing.
Then
if they break their laws,
them.
catch those that have broken the law and prosecute them.
That's why I said it's not the government, it's the people.
It's one and the same thing. So the government should put their people in check. If you harass a Nigerian, that's against the law in Ghana.
There's a big gap about settlers' rights as well. So I have the right to move globally and legally to wherever I want to move to. And I have rights to live wherever I'm permitted to live.
Yes.
And the question therefore shouldn't be that this person has come and they are taking over our
economic activities.
Because most of the conversation that you hear about indigenous people's rights is about culture, land, language, and what have you. And if a minority or if settlers decide that we are all migrants in the real sense, nobody was born and that, this is the land I was born into. Most of us and most people move from one place to the other. If you trace the ancestry of everybody, you will know that people moved from one particular place to the other. And again, why I say I'm playing a devil's advocate is that there are too many instruments protecting indigenous people's rights. If you look at the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the ILO has an international instrument protecting the rights of indigenous peoples. You have the World Bank has a regulation. A regulation that talks about indigenous peoples and all that. But nobody is talking about the hostility that settlers face. There has to be some form of protection for these people. Because the question about indigenous peoples is that you come, you bring in your culture, you bring in your experience, and you exploit our lands. And most of the time, the question about indigenous people's rights is not just about foreigners who come to settle. It's usually about resources that the government exploits. Not people from Ghana, Nigeria, going into Ghana to exploit their natural resources. It is the global companies. Like I said, settlers need to feel a sense of belonging in an environment or in a place where they settle. If the Indigos in Ghana, for example, get to Ghana and they want to speak in the language that they also understand, they should have a leader who represents them, who can do that. If they decide to call their leader their king, it's their prerogative. Their king, they are not telling you that we are taking away your own kingdom and we are forming our own. It is just like how we have, in my village, we have a king in Lagos State, for example. We have somebody, Obol is a king, that's what they call him. He represents the people of my community in Lagos State.
I've been to Ghana, right? And when it comes to prostitution or whatever it's called, I've gone to certain areas, I'll try not to mention names, and I feel like, to a large extent, if I see a Nigerian, I know a Nigerian. The people that were lined up and doing the prostitution, they were not Nigerians, right? They were Ghanaians. Now, my point is, Igbo people, forget about Ghana. For everywhere, even in Lagos State, like he has rightly said, we are a very communal-driven people, right? Unfortunately, calling myself out, I have not been participating in all those community engagements, but I know, even in the UK, in Canada, everywhere they go, there's a community, and they use that to be able to say, oh, this our brother has come in, how do we help them? Even in terms of burial and childbirth and all, they all come together to be able to say this is how they are going to support each other, or how they settle and uphold that one is the Igbo language speaking, and also just brotherhood and all. That is Igbo people for you. And I'm glad that Matt has already said this happens in other communities as well, right? This is not about saying Eze Ndi Igbo Ghana is now Eze of Ghana. That is not the point. I also like that maybe in trying to be civil, the people here have said, let's change it to leadership. Maybe that brings some form of succor to people, but no, the problem is not the Igbo people. And let's not make this look like, oh, this is just a Ghana and Nigerian thing. This is almost what every Nigerian faces in most of the African countries, because it's always a case of they're facing it in South Africa. This same thing sometimes come up in Kenya. It's a case of Nigerians are here, they have the education, they probably are getting the jobs that they think that they have. We've seen some interviews where you ask them, so what is the problem? Say they're taking my job. Oh, did you go to school? No. Do you have the requirement to be able to do this job? No. So how exactly are they taking your job? Because those jobs, they're being employed because they are qualified to do the job. So there is a lot more going on. I feel like whatever is happening now on the surface has a lot underneath it that everybody then grabs in on straws to say, oh, this is what this one did, this is what they did. We need to, as Africans, begin to see ourselves as brothers first. Right? Nigerians will always be Nigerians. We are fast, we are loud. Forward, we are loud. But I would say, as a Nigerian, if you go to Ghana, please, as long as you are registered and you are there legally, then that makes sense, right? If you're not there legally, please leave your country. It's as simple as I respect people to do what the law says. But having a communal gathering and doing things because this is how you survive, I mean, it doesn't infringe on anybody's rights. And I don't think that we should be vilified because we are holding up our community. That should not be what should happen.
We speak of Pan-Africanism. However, for there to be true unity, there must first be respectful coexistence, not only within a country, but intra-country as well.
Respectful coexistence begins when we put away insincere politics and build bonds on foundations of true legacy, the kind that lives in the heart.